You remember that guy Milo Yiannopoulos? We haven't heard much from him. He was drummed out of the conservative movement for a while because it turned out that he was gay and married to a man, and they were looking for a way to get him out. And then he was like, he was basically sort of espousing that libertarian view that pedophilia is really just sort of is a social construct. I mean, it is, but it's not necessarily one that we should probably get rid of. But Yiannopoulos is on with Tim Pool. And who's this guy?
This is Nick Ox. He is the founder of the Proud Boys Hawaii chapter.
Oh,
joke.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Excuse me. Formerly known as the Proud Boys.
Yes, right.
The not so Proud Boys.
Right.
The Nazi Proud Boys.
Hawaii
Not so
Proud
Proud Boys.
Go surf, you loser.
Yeah, right? How could you be unhappy and like angry in Hawaii?
Many of you know the
frustration.
backstory of Tim Pool's recent scandal, where it turned out he was getting millions upon millions of dollars from a company known as Tenet Media, which was a front group for, or a cutout, I guess, as they say, for Russian intelligence. And which is not to say that Tim was told what to say, but rather that they enjoyed his commentary enough to support it beyond a typical membership level. And but here is this exchange, which is pretty funny because, you know, Tim wasn't the only person who got snowed by this. Dave Rubin did too. And that guy, Benny Johnson.
Oh, right.
They all made a ton of money, like just an enormous amount of money from the Russians unknowingly because they didn't do due diligence per se as to where they were getting all this money. But this happened.
And just a content warning if you're listening at work, this is Milo, so you know the score.
This direction. What we have is an indicator in USAID that establishes $38 billion, mostly being used for the most ridiculous things you've ever heard of. It's all transsexual theater in South America. That's not just one thing. It's all that. Okay, cool. Not too surprising that this is connected to U.S. and foreign influence. My question is, how much money total of our entitlements is not just the classic welfare in the form of, say, food stamps, but grant money for just the most corrupt and ridiculous transsexual theater in regular America, not just South America, right? We need to find out what this final number is because it's everything. It's like USA, the National Park Service came out.
I have a question.
Pause it 1 second. We have to address the level of ignorance that was in there. When he says regular America, he's talking to about the United States of America. Regular America. That's honestly, like, I think, like,
Says the Hawaiian Proud Boy.
Yeah.
the punchline of a joke in the past. But he's saying now we need to look into entitlements, which traditionally people have referred to as Social Security and Medicare. And he's now claiming that all that money is actually going to transsexual dance parties in regular America. This is a person who honestly, I think, like, in any other context, people would alert this person's relatives and said, like, you've got to come and pick this guy up.
Somebody watching this
having
guy?
an episode.
I mean, by definition, Social Security and Medicare are in its own pool of money and can't go to the kinds of things that he's talking about. This is just like basic understanding.
Supposedly.
And
Until Rock gets a hand on it.
relatedly, from earlier this morning, Trump has signed an executive order pausing enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which forbids companies in the United States from bribing foreign officials. So, I don't know, I guess this is not really about rooting out corruption in the federal government. I mean,
well, it's rooting out corruption in the federal government and transferring it over to corruption in foreign governments.
Okay. All right. Just making sure I got this straight.
theater in regular America, not just South America, right? We need to find out what this final number is because it's everything. It's like USA, the National Park Service came out.
We're never going to get there. I have billions a year. I have a question for you and for everybody who's listening, or I should say I have a tip, I suppose. We know for a fact that there are many popular liberal podcasts that run nonprofits or have nonprofits buying ad spots.
There are any popular liberal podcasts.
Whatever you want to call it.
We're going to find out.
Remember David Packman after the election. There's no popular podcast.
So let me, this point I'm making is that.
Let me just take this moment to say that our membership and our subscriber numbers did not go down after the election. But go ahead.
Some did.
I think there are any popular liberal podcasts.
Whatever you want to call it.
We're going to find out.
Remember David Packman after the election. There's no popular podcast.
So let me, this point I'm making is that who is funding these shows and how are they being propped up? One, obviously YouTube is propping them up, despite the fact they're clearly not popular, as we just saw the results of the election. Yep. However, we do know that many of them sell ad space to powerful nonprofits. Yep. I believe that if you track the...
I doubt that Tim is talking about us, even though I brought this up with him and he was completely embarrassed by it. But you've heard our roster of ads today. One was an organization in Rhode Island that hires refugees to make granola. And the other was, what was it? A cleaning product.
I mean, is Give Directly what he's referring to? Or, well, I mean, we also had that Biden-Harris sponsorship where...
A secret one.
We had, no, well...
by a crusading journalist.
I mean...
Okay.
As we just saw the results of the election. Yep. However, we do know that many of them sell ad space to powerful nonprofits. Yep. I believe that if you track the government spending through these nonprofits, you will find it goes from government to NGO into the hands of liberal pundits.
David Packman.
I don't.
Now he might not even know, and that's the important thing.
Oh yeah, well.
No. Let me. This is important. You can accuse him of knowing. You can accuse him of intentionally taking money. My point is this.
Pause it for a second, right there. Now, the reason why Tim wants to have that clarification is because sometimes people like Tim end up getting paid by the Russian government and don't realize it. So just so you know, again, I also want to reiterate, we don't sell any ad space to any not-for-profit that is sponsored by the U.S. government. The only one I think is GiveWell, which is a charity navigator thing. But
and yes, we do not sell. That was facetious earlier. Any ad space for political campaigns or take money secretly, as Tim seemed to have done, and not disclose
although
it publicly.
I might take ads and run them free for that guy running against Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco. But
yes,
that if you track the government spending through these nonprofits, you will find it goes from government to NGO into the hands of liberal pundits.
David Packman.
Now he might not even know, and that's the important thing.
Oh yeah, well.
No. Let me. This is important. You can accuse him of knowing. You can accuse him of intentionally taking money. My point is this.
I would never accuse David Packman of knowing anything.
Sure. There very well may be.
That was coming.
There very well may be individuals.
What happened with those guys? Did Packman and Milo have Milo on recently and embarrass him?
It's just Packman's thing after the election that they're talking about.
Knowing you can accuse him of intentionally taking money. My point is this.
I would never accuse David Packman of knowing anything.
Sure. There very well may be.
That was coming.
There very well may be individuals who their ad person comes to them and says, this NGO wants to spend $100,000 in ads on your show.
Don't
and
you
they
think
say,
you're doing that conservative thing of giving too much credit?
No, I'm saying in general, big picture.
No, they know exactly where the money's coming from. Dave Rubin knew where the money was coming from when it was coming from Russia. He used it to buy his children.
That is 100% false, and you know that ropes me into it, and I can verify it's 100% false.
All right.
Completely untrue.
It is so,
and this is important big picture stuff because USAID is funneling money into NGOs.
It's irresponsible in the extreme to the point of ludicrous negligence to not know where hundreds of thousands of dollars are coming from. To not even ask.
Oh, pause it for 1 second. Now, pause it for 1 second. Now, well, let me explain to you what's going on here. Milo does not realize that Tim Pool was roped into this. And when
Yes.
Tim says you're roping me into this now, Milo still doesn't register. Now, I just want to make this clear, just so that Tim has some cover in this conversation. Milo is saying it is the height of irresponsibility to not know where hundreds of thousands of dollars are coming from. Just to be clear, Tim got over several $1 million. So maybe once you cross the threshold
Right, no
of 1
responsibility
million,
left.
you have less responsibility because it's no longer several hundred thousand.
It's called the responsibility donut hole.
There you, exactly.
Responsible in the extreme to the point of ludicrous negligence to not know where hundreds of thousands of dollars are coming from. To not even ask.
And that's not the story at all. So if you knew what you're talking about, maybe it'd sound smarter.
All right. Well, I will.
But clearly, as the story has already been reported and you haven't read any of it, which involves me, which I find particularly insulting, is that certainly Dave, I, as well as Benny, did ridiculous due diligence in digging and trying to figure out what the source of the revenue was beyond your typical ad deal. So when I get an ad sale person who comes to me
Pause
and
it for a second. This ridiculous due diligence involved demanding to see a colored PDF one-page CV of Mr. Edward Gregorian.
Yeah, we know it's ridiculous. It's why we're ridiculing you about it.
Yeah, I think he meant ridiculous the other way. So is he?
It's ridicule-
is Milo trolling?
ridicule-worthy.
Does he know?
No, Milo doesn't know.
I don't
and now
know,
Tim is
but-
getting offended.
He's a troll. He might. He's got those glasses on. He could be messing with him.
I don't.
I'm
think
not
so.
ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out.
All right.
All right.
Let's go back a little bit because I want to watch Tim get very, very angry. Tim thinks that Milo knows, but I'm pretty sure that Milo
I think
doesn't
you're
know.
probably right. I'm just saying it's possible.
Extreme to the point of ludicrous negligence to not know where hundreds of thousands of dollars are coming from. To not even ask.
And that's not the story at all. So if you knew what you're talking about, maybe it'd sound smarter.
All right. Well, I will.
But clearly, as the story has already been reported and you haven't read any of it, which involves me, which I find particularly insulting, is that certainly Dave, I, as well as Benny, did ridiculous due diligence in digging and trying to figure out what the source of the revenue was beyond your typical ad deal. So when I get an ad sale person who comes to me and says, this company
I didn't remember that you were involved in that.
This company wants to sell, they want to buy $100,000 in ad reads over this amount of time. No one anywhere in media says, tell me who their investors are, get me on the phone with him. And when this stuff went down, Dave, Benny, I, and many others said, we want to know what this is all about, who is this involved with, and when you get a prominent conservative
I just want to say, we've actually had sponsors who we found out that they had production facilities in the West Bank and cut them off.
Right.
Now, maybe that's different from who the investors are.
And even then, didn't that go through a third-party person with ads, right?
Oh, our broker came to us and said we were selling ads for them, and then we found out that they were doing business in the West Bank, and I went back to the broker. I'm like,
And it would be a little different
Can't do it.
if that company, which will go unnamed, was coming to us directly via, say, maybe, I don't know, Bradley, and saying, we're going to give you multiple millions of dollars and you don't necessarily need to do an ad read. This is just to subsidize your show because we love it so much.
oh, I wouldn't be suspicious of that at all. People do that every day.
Yeah, it's just a normal thing.
That's
Yeah.
a total normal thing. A couple $1 million and, oh, you're just going to replay the show on your platform? Oh, okay.
And when this stuff went down, Dave, Benny, I, and many others said, we want to know what this is all about, who is this involved with, and when you get a prominent conservative personality based out of Nashville with an American company and says, here's the investors, they're going to talk to you, explain it, here's the proof, we go, okay, well, like a prominent conservative personality is running a company out of Nashville.
Lauren Chen.
Lauren Chen.
Was she a prominent personality?
Certainly was. Hundreds of thousands of followers on the Blaze. Everybody knew she was, and she had a story, and so we did some digging.
I've never heard of her before this.
And so this is
Pause it for 1 second. Pause
I
it for
didn't
1
remember
second.
you-
Pause it.
This
Just
is
keep
the
him
big-
up there.
remember you were a
keep him up there and go back a little bit because this is where Milo backs off. Doesn't realize that Tim was going to be so sensitive about it. But we actually have a tape from Edward Gregorian who's talking to Tim. We just have the Gregorian side. Let's just roll that tape. Hello, is this Tim? Tim, it's Edward Gregorian. I'm here. Just wanted to call and tell you that the money is absolutely fine. Don't worry about the thing. I'm from Belgium, but if my accent sounds strange, it's because I moved around a lot as a kid. Army brat.
I'm the kind of person who, when a Blaze flunky tells me they have 600 or six-figure offers for me, I'm like, say no more, Lauren.
But Tim, I commend you for all the great work you're doing in investigating me. But I have to go now. Bye-bye. Great outgoing voice message you have.
You go, okay, well, like a prominent conservative personality is running a company out of Nashville.
Lauren Chen.
Lauren Chen.
Was she a prominent personality?
Certainly
he's so
was.
catty.
Hundreds of thousands of followers on the Blaze. Everybody knew she was, and she had a story, and so we did some digging.
I've never heard of her before this.
And so this is the point.
Sorry, I didn't remember you.
This is the
I
big
didn't
picture.
remember you were a victim of
Right.
that. So I apologize for casting aspersions if that was your impression.
So to imply,
I didn't remember you were a victim of that. But
now let's go to the big picture
Pause it
on
for a
USAID.
second. It's interesting because Milo's just changed his whole tune. Literally 90 seconds ago, it was beyond the height of irresponsibility to not discover where hundreds of thousands of dollars came from. And now he's saying, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were a victim of that.
It's so funny. Tim just desperately wants to do all this dumb smearing of like, oh, look at all this political USAID money. That's just like subscriptions of people who work for the political.
Except for Tim has this big sort of monkey on his back, and Milo just basically, Tim was sort of like tiptoeing along the knife's edge. And I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to be able to deliver this, and no one's going to remember that I am actually the flunky.
Yeah, I'm the genuine article.
I am the genuine article of being bought and paid for. And Milo brings it up. I was a victim. Go.
I apologize for casting aspersions if that was your impression.
So to imply,
I didn't remember you were a victim of that. But
now let's go to the big picture on USAID and other NGO funding.
Tim looks like he's
now
crying.
Certainly that affects us. When someone, I'll say it again, we right now have probably 30 advertisers who've come to us and wanted to buy ads, and we said we're in a holding pattern right now doing negotiations. They're offering us $50,000 sometimes for one ad read. One company says we'll give you $50,000 to promote our company. Do we say, I want the CEO on the phone, I want to know who funded them, I want to know where that funding came from?
I just want to make something clear here. This was not an ad buy. When we do an ad, it's quite clear who's paying for it. Now, if, for whatever reason, Hello Tushy has a secret agenda of selling a different bidet product from their rival, but they promote their own, but they have a secret, or maybe Hello Tushy buys an ad from us and they promote the bidet, but the reason why they're doing it is because they have a specific resentment against the toilet paper company and they don't want people to use toilet paper, or whatever hidden agenda is, that it's silly because it's laid out there. The problem with what Tim is talking about, he's comparing apples and oranges. It's one thing to have a sponsor that you think is problematic and decide we don't want it. Different, people have different sort of like thresholds in which they, we may not do any type of finance advertising. We may not do, but we'll do Seba Day advertising. Okay, different people. This is funding that was completely hidden from the listeners and viewers of his program.
Yep.
To the tune of millions upon millions of dollars. And you never, you never reveal, like, we're getting this show is subsidized by blankety blank blank blank. It was completely unclear. Now, Milo seems to think it is completely irresponsible and doesn't believe that someone could actually be duped in that way. And I think that's a
fair assessment.
I think that's a fair position to have. But Tim is arguing that's not. But the weird thing is that Tim keeps changing the category of which he's talking about. Nobody said anything about advertisers.
But he's talking about USAID, and I guess this is just a quick brief aside. I sent this, Bradley, like the Barry Weiss tweet. This is like the end goal of all of this is to make more news like Tim Pool, or to make more news like the Free Press, that Barry Weiss's outfit, where she's talking about NPR and PBS funding. Okay, it's just $535 million, she says, and she's basically casting aspersions on the idea that NPR and PBS should get public funding from the government, and they're using this veneer of corruption to make this argument, where the free press was literally invested in by Mark Andreessen and Andreessen Horowitz early on. What they want to do is create more and more incentive for private money to take over to take over our media institutions. When PBS is funded by viewers like you, instead they want it to said funded by Palantir or something like that. What's more corrupting? Tax, like a set small amount relative to the federal government of tax dollars that are allocated towards this kind of media, or private for-profit venture capital money going towards these outfits? Which would you like to decide? Because the latter is when you get Barry Weiss or you get Tim Pool. Anyway.
Barry Weiss is partnered with a descendant of Henry Miller, the cattle king of California, one of the largest landowners of the United States.
Also financed by Harlan Crow, who, he's the guy who owns Clarence Thomas.
Anyway.
They're like Rogan is in on this too with Brett Weinstein. All of our people who criticize us are fake because they know that they are all
Totally.
They all have sugar daddies.
Yep.
One ad read. One company says, we'll give you $50,000 to promote our company. Do we say, I want the CEO on the phone, I want to know who funded them, I want to know where that funding came from?
Nobody does that, but that wasn't quite...
And this is the point when I say about David Packman.
Milo was about to say that.
I'm saying, when we know those things happen, take a look at where USAID was giving their money and see how much of those NGOs were buying ad reads in media, because they are.
Well, you're not going to like this, but to take money from somebody so obviously ludicrously insubstantial as Lauren Chen and not ask more questions seems stupid to me.
Except there were questions asked.
I don't want to continue this because I'm not trying to attack you. I didn't remember that you were roped.
The big picture is...
I didn't remember you were caught up in this.
When we have 30 sponsors, do you think it's reasonable for any media company to say get their investors on the phone, or do you only talk to their sales reps?
I've been interviewed once by Lauren Chen, and
okay, we're beyond that.
I certainly...
The point I'm making is no company, David Packman, Kyle Kalinske, Dave Rubin, me, or otherwise, is going beyond the sales rep and their press.
Kyle is fully funded by subscription and doesn't take any advertisers, and says it every second that he can. So it's a horrible example.
So the NGOs haven't been able to get into him yet.
Yeah, he doesn't even do what we do with Hello Tushy. He doesn't do any ad reads.
Look at Tim Pool surrounding himself with other people to hide behind them when none of it applies.
Yeah.
No.
None of it applies. And even Milo is like, how do I now navigate this thing where Tim is obviously full of excrement, but I don't want to offend him, but I also have to maintain some personal integrity in this thing. And
Can we just change the subject? That doesn't happen on podcasts.
Yeah.
We shouldn't talk about this anymore.
For your sake, go ahead, Bradley.
No company, David Packman, Kyle Kalinske, Dave Rubin, me, or otherwise, is going beyond the sales rep and their press kit to figure out that USAID or any other government or any other country is funneling things into media to prop them up.
At this size, no, that's true. At this size, that's true. But
not a single company does. Not a single,
that's not true.
I'll tell you, that absolutely is.
Well,
I bought billboards through Outfront Media.
I've bought billboards. I've done Times Square just like you have.
Absolutely, and never once in any of the ads that we've bought have they come to me and said, "We want your P&L, and we want to know if you have any investors, we want your board of directors." Nobody does it.
Nobody's saying that. I think you have to make room for the possibility, however, although you may have been taken in by a particular scheme, that other people went into it and were very happy not to look too deeply.
It's not the case for Dave Rubin.
Okay.
Well, why are we stopping here? This is
Have you ever considered?
An ad.
They got the guy with the same accent.
We're monetizing this. We can't really.
Oh, this is secretly all by a hearing company.
Other people went into it and were very happy not to look too deeply. I don't.
It's not the case for Dave Rubin.
Well,
nor Benny nor me. You can speak of anybody else, but I can say for those guys.
I don't necessarily take the views of people who concoct Franken babies for paying women to birth them
Like I said,
as a high moral standard or
Sure, but in this regard, I can tell you.
No, I
that
don't really
due
take his
diligence
word
was
for
done.
anything. I don't take his word for anything for all kinds of reasons, particularly how he treated me. He's a liar. He's a liar.
Sure.
He's a slippery, slimy, gross
I can
liar.
say in this one regard that involves me, it's not the case.
I don't
Oh
know
my
that.
God,
You may
he's
know
so
that because you know things
defensive.
other people don't know. But it's not an unreasonable supposition that.
Pause it. I have never, ever contemplated. It has never occurred to me for a moment that I would like to have a conversation with Milo Yiannopoulos until today, at this time, when I would love to go deeper into his understanding of Dave Rubin, and also whether he actually, in this moment, genuinely believes that Tim Pool didn't know, or is just like, I don't want to burn this bridge. I'd be very interesting to hear about that. Go ahead.
One regard that involves me, it's not the case.
I don't know that. You may know that because you know things other people don't know. But it's not an unreasonable supposition that Dave Rubin did. Look, I think we can move on from this. It is no secret that a lot of bad money has gone to people on the right and on the center right. But it's typically the case that right-wing people will go and get investors rather than do advertisers, fake it till they make it, and then they'll get sort of the big ticket advertisers. So the way Ben Shapiro, the way Candace get famous is they get Wilkes Brothers, or they get some other kind of billionaire money, and they buy engagement, they buy followers, and they sort of propel themselves to the top of the heap, and then fake it till they make it, and then eventually it's kind of sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Everybody does that.
Everybody does not do that.
Well, we've just never done anything like
Everybody
that.
does not do that.
Pause it for a second. Interesting turn. Tim says, and we've been saying this about Ben Shapiro for a long time. They bought millions of dollars of Facebook ads several years ago, and it propelled them.
Yep.
And then Tim says, everybody does that. And then says, but I didn't do it. Everybody does that. And then realizes, like, whoa, wait, no, I didn't. That's fascinating. I will say right now, definitively, we have never done that. We did one ad buy for $1,500. Now, I've been meaning to do a second one for 6 years, and we're going to. But we just haven't gotten around to it.
Two people who did that, who are
Go back. I want to
demonstrably-
see Tim's little turn. That's fascinating to me. Everybody does that. Oh, I didn't do it.
do advertisers, fake it till they make it, and then they'll get, sort of the big ticket advertisers. So the way Ben Shapiro, the way Candace get famous is they get Wilkes Brothers, or they get some other kind of billionaire money, and they buy engagement, they buy followers, and they sort of propel themselves to the top of the heap, and they fake it till they make it, and then eventually it's kind of sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Everybody does that.
Everybody does not do that.
Well, we've never done anything like
Everybody
that.
does not do that. I said two people who did that, who are demonstrably did that, right? I didn't say everybody did that. I never did that. When I was cancelled, I had the same number of followers as Ben Shapiro and everything. I was growing faster. He was growing more slowly, and 60% of his followers were fake. 100% of mine were organic. In fact, we ran things to get rid of the bots, right? So that's one of the reasons they took me out. I didn't say everybody did it, but those two did it. And
also
so on
gay.
the right, typically,
That's a
people
problem
will
for
take
them.
startup capital and they'll invest that way, and then they'll get the big advertisers that are safer, right? On the left, people will take money from pretty much anywhere, and they won't ask too many questions.
All the billionaires that want to give us
Right, yeah, all the billionaires, all the big billionaires.
I think that's
Hey, Mark Cuban, stop getting into my DMs and asking to give me money, please.
Reed Hastings just keeps giving me a direct deposit every day.
That was
that's
awesome.
great. I mean, Milo has some tea to spill. Wasn't he all across the Kanye and the?
Milo blew the whistle on Kanye's dentist, basically addicting him to nitrous oxide and wanting to have him lead a campaign to legalize nitrous oxide so he could dose everybody else with it too.
Weird.
Just so you know who the Wilkes brothers are, turns out Dan and Farris Wilkes, their estimated net worth is between the two of them, close to $4 billion. They sold a 70% stake in their fracking company, Fractech, for $3.5 billion in 2011. They were frackers. And they have acquired more than 670,000 acres of land in 6 different states. They are the nation's 12th largest landowners. Well, there you go. I wonder why guys who are so interested in fracking would be excited to pay Ben Shapiro so much money.
They love to frack free speech, too.
There you go.
They just love it. It's fascinating to see Milo just state what we've all been saying about these guys, though, that they are artificially subsidized by oligarchy into your friends and family's brains, these idiots.
And it's a little bit different than fake it till you make it. It's not just about self-confidence. It's literally where you are propped up, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that you have been paid to have followers. You were paid followers, and you know what? They used to do this with book sales too. They would push right when they probably still
Used
do.
to. I mean, these are Republican books. Yeah.
They push these right-wing books up to the top of the charts by having institutional sales. The Heritage Foundation will come in and buy, 10,000 books in a day, and bingo, it goes right up to the top of the charts. But that was fun to watch. I may even watch the rest of that.
Well, you have to do it on Rumble because they had to pull it down because I think Milo did something extremely racist. So they had to take it out.
That's why that episode's not available
If you
on
can believe
YouTube.
it, yeah.
What? Seriously?
That's odd.
Turns out Milo did something bad.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.